Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you for coming to the Pasadena Veterans Day Ceremony 2025. To begin our program today, we would like to invite Pasadena Mayor Victor Gordo to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Now, we are here in the great city of Pasadena, the greatest country in the world, to recognize our servicemen and women in the past and the present, and importantly in the future, who will serve this country and keep it the greatest country in the world. So I'm going to give you one more chance. How's everybody doing? Okay. Now we sound like we're here to recognize great service and great members of our military. We're gathered here together with the Marines and sailors of the 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marine Regiment, and members of our community who have served in the military. Not just as a community, but as a family reunited. The city that so proudly adopted the 2nd Battalion and 23rd Marine Regiment adopted you, and in 2013 says, "Welcome home." In returning from vast expanses to the water, from the waters of Okinawa and the Western Pacific, carrying with you that unbreakable Marine Corps spirit. To everyone who has held down forts while our Marines were abroad, to the families of loved ones, the spouses who became single parents overnight, the kids who counted down deployment on homemade calendars, the parents who prayed through every midnight, we call you the anchors of this battalion. Your strength has made this mission possible. Now the men and women of the 223, what a chapter you've written. Activated on November 1st, 2024, you mobilized as the first full Marine Reserve Infantry Battalion to deploy to Okinawa in over 5 years. For 6 grueling months, you forward deployed, conducting bilateral, multilateral training across Japan, South Korea, and beyond. This isn't just any deployment, it's a legacy renewed. Your battle in history began in January of 1944 at Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, and the 223 fought in other fierce campaigns during World War II, Saipan, Tinian, and the Battle of Iwo Jima, where it was famously said that uncommon valor was a common virtue. 4 medals of honor and the Presidential Unit Citation were earned along the way. From those Pacific theater battles to your activation in Desert Storm, the global war on terror, and now this Indo-Pacific rotation, the first full battalion all up in 13 years, you've carried that torch forward. But let's be real for a moment. Deployments aren't all glory and green lights. The distance between home and where you find yourself stings. The humidity of Okinawa tests your grit. The weight of responsibility for your squad, your mission, your families never lifts. Yet, here you are, battle-tested, mission accomplished, ready to integrate into the lives you pause so selflessly. As you return to your civilian lives, please know that you've made Pasadena very proud. From all of us, we say, well done. God bless all of you. God bless the United States Marine Corps. Let me, I'll do it later. Yeah. Let me, as I complete these comments, recognize that I am joined here today by a number of colleagues to say thank you to the 223. First, Justice Eileen Moore, who we'll hear from the 4th Appellate District. Of course, our men and women in service here in the city of Pasadena, the Pasadena Zone firefighters and police officers are here with us. My colleagues, Vice Mayor Jessica Rivas is here with us. Councilmember Justin Jones. Councilmember Tyrone Hampton. Councilmember Jean Masuda. And Councilmember Jason Lyon. Also with us is a great partner who does quite a bit for our men and women in service, Jens Whedon, the CEO of the Rose Bowl. Miles Keeling is here representing Assemblymember John Harabedian. Darla Dyson here representing Senator Sasha Perez. Patrice Marshall McKenzie here on behalf of the Pasadena Unified School District. And of course, our friend and colleague, former Mayor Terry Tornick is here with us. Next, I'll turn it over to the Sea Cadets for the rest of the program. Thank you. So if we can have the Sea Cadets.
Left, right, right, left, 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 right,
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please remain standing as Shannon Renee Gray of Martin Severin's chapter, National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, will sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallant streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Right face. Right face. Colors, pose. Present arms. Carry arms. Left face. Forward, arms. Left, left, left,
We would now like to bring up our Master of Ceremonies of the day, former Pasadena Mayor William Paparium. He served our nation on active duty in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War and continues to serve the state of California as a captain in the State Guard and the County of Los Angeles as a deputy district attorney.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. And how about a round of applause for the Blair High School Army Junior ROTC? Aren't those cadets wonderful? Honored veterans, active duty service members, families, distinguished guests, and proud Pasadenans, we are gathered on this Veterans Day 2025 to honor all who have served our nation and to celebrate a monumental milestone, the 250th anniversaries of the United States Army, Navy, and Marine Corps. In 1775, as our nation's founders dared to dream of independence, the Second Continental Congress called forth these three pillars of freedom. Upon receiving the news that the New England militia had resisted British regular troops at Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts, the Second Continental Congress, meeting in Philadelphia, decided that the rebels required a formal military organization. Wednesday, 14 June, 1775, resolved that 6 companies of expert riflemen be immediately raised in Pennsylvania, 2 in Maryland, and 2 in Virginia. Friday, 13 October, 1775, resolved that a swift sailing vessel to carry 10 carriage guns with a proportional number of swivels with 80 men be fitted with all possible dispatch. And Friday, 10 November 1775, resolved that 2 battalions of Marines be raised, that they be distinguished by the names of the 1st and 2nd Battalions of American Marines. Today, beneath the iconic dome of Pasadena City Hall, we salute 250 years of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering service. These 3 branches of our armed forces, older than the nation itself, have carried America through every trial, from the frozen fields of Valley Forge to the beaches of Iwo Jima, from the skies over the Pacific to the deserts of Afghanistan. Their mottos: this we'll defend, not for self, but for country, and always faithful resound in the stories of heroism that define our history. This year, our nation has celebrated these milestones with pride, and this morning, we continue this tradition with our own heartfelt tributes, uniting our community to honor those who have served. To the veterans and active duty service members among us, you are the living legacy of these 250 years. Your service has preserved our freedoms and inspired our nation. And to the families, your steadfast support has been the backbone of our military. And to the people of Pasadena, your presence here ensures that our veterans' sacrifices remain etched into our community's heart. As we approach America's 250th birthday in 2026, let us teach our children the names of those military heroes from Pasadena, ensuring that their legacy endures. The Medal of Honor is our nation's highest military decoration, awarded for valor in action against an enemy force. It is bestowed by the President on behalf of Congress to service members who distinguish themselves through gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his or her life above and beyond the call of duty. Our city honors two Medal of Honor recipients, Reginald Desiderio and Joe Hayashi, both of whom received it posthumously. There is a park named after Desiderio in the Lower Arroyo, and a plaque with his Medal of Honor citation. And in Victory Park, there is a plaque in honor of Joe Hayashi. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a third son of Pasadena who received the Medal of Honor after returning home, who has been forgotten by this city, whose story of valor and sacrifice has faded with time. Raymond G. Harvey ranks among the most highly decorated soldiers in the entire history of the United States Army. He should be among the most famous citizens of Pasadena, right alongside sports heroes like Jackie and Mac Robinson. He was a Chickasaw whose home of record was Pasadena when he entered military service in 1939. And Pasadena was the city he returned to after heroic service in World War II, and again after service in Korea, where he would build a home on Tropical Avenue and Upper Hastings Ranch in 1952. After his distinguished service in Korea, Raymond Harvey was joined by his foster parents, who owned a music store in this city, at the White House, where President Truman awarded him the Medal of Honor. Raymond Harvey also earned the Distinguished Service Cross, 3 Silver Stars, 3 Bronze Stars, 3 Purple Hearts, and the French Croix de Guerre with Palm for his valor in both World War II and in Korea. But service did not come without hardship for Raymond Harvey. He faced discrimination and adversity as a Chickasaw, yet he pressed on, propelled by a steadfast belief in duty and honor. His Medal of Honor citation is included in your program. Harvey was part of the amphibious landing at Incheon, Korea. He had taken command of Company C of the 17th Infantry Regiment when his company commander was wounded in action before the Chinese crossed the Yalu River into Korea. Captain Harvey received orders to lead the attack on Hill 1232 on 9 March 1951. North Korean machine guns canvassed the hillside inside of fortifications. Harvey and the men of Company C were soon pinned down under a hail of machine gun fire. And suddenly, Captain Harvey charged up the hill in the face of enemy fire. He tossed grenades into the first pillbox, killing those inside. Miraculously escaping death, he then advanced to the next entrenchment killing the enemy soldiers inside. The men of Company C eventually joined Captain Harvey, only to watch their commander charge the next machine gun nest single-handedly, killing the enemy while taking a bullet near his chest. Eyewitnesses then saw Harvey bleeding, crawling toward another enemy stronghold and annihilating them. In agonizing pain and refusing medical evaluation, he ordered the men of Company C to complete the mission and seize Hill 1232. Although he was recognized in 1952 as a Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade, there are no tributes in his name to be found anywhere in the Crown City. A good start would be the dedication of a commemorative plaque for Medal of Honor recipient Raymond G. Harvey. For as long as courage dwells among us, so too will the legacy of Raymond G. Harvey. And so on this Veterans Day, as we pause to honor our military service members, let us also renew our commitment to a nation worthy of their sacrifice. To the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps, thank you for 250 years of defending our freedom. Semper Fidelis, anchors away, Army strong. May God bless our veterans, our military, and the United States of America. And now I have the honor of introducing a real patriot who will lead us in the invocation today. I want to tell you a little bit about him. Ted Seraph graduated from LaSalle High School and began his military career with the California Army National Guard in 1965. Called up for active duty during the Vietnam War, he served for 6 years in the California National Guard and then volunteered for service in the United States Army Reserve, and he became a special agent with the Criminal Investigation Division, also known as the CID. Ted was deployed numerous times overseas, investigating crimes, and was part of the personal security detail for many of our highest-ranking officers. He rose to the ranks as a warrant officer and retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 4 after a 25-year career. But like many returning veterans, Ted Seraph's service to our community was not over with, because in 1967, he began a career with the Pasadena Police Department. His assignments included patrol officer, motorcycle officer traffic enforcement, and the special enforcement team. He was promoted to the rank of detective and served as a court liaison officer. He was then assigned to the vehicle theft section. Ted Seraph was selected by the County of Los Angeles for assignment to the Task Force for Regional Auto Theft Prevention, a very specialized unit of 30 detectives from agencies throughout the County of Los Angeles. Ted retired in 1997 after 30 years of service with the City of Pasadena. But Ted Seraph wasn't done yet. He next began working as a senior law enforcement liaison for the LoJack Corporation, assisting with training in the operation of tracking stolen vehicles. Ted also traveled to Paris, France, and Italy to train foreign police officers. He retired in 2019 after 22 years of service. Ted is currently a volunteer for the Sierra Madre Police Department, and he joins us today as the chaplain for the American Legion Post 13. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the invocation.
Thank you. I will be brief. Oh God, we thank you for this wonderful country in which we are privileged to live. Bless the men and women of our nations, military, to protect our privileges and freedoms. We ask your grace and wisdom for leaders of our nation, and we ask for your divine care for the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen, the Marines, the Coast Guardsmen, and those who serve in the Space Force. Bless their service, bless their lives, and God bless America. Amen.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The United States of America Vietnam War 50th commemoration, which began in 2012, will conclude today on Veterans Day 2025. This commemoration honors the service, sacrifice, and enduring legacy of Vietnam veterans and their families. Earlier this year, here in Pasadena, we held a Vietnam War commemoration in Memorial Park. I was a member of the organizing committee and served as the MC. But just as the city of Pasadena has forgotten Medal of Honor recipient Raymond Harvey, overlooked the unsung heroes of the Vietnam War, the women who volunteered to serve. And so today, we pause to remember the Army combat nurses of Vietnam. Now, I want you to picture a 22-year-old second lieutenant stepping off of a C-130 plane at Tan Son Nhut Air Base, still smelling the gardenias from her commissioning ceremony, and 12 hours later smelling blood and diesel fuel in a field hospital. Picture the monsoon night when the helicopters came in waves with no lights, with rotor blades slicing the rain, and medics shouting, "Plug the holes, keep the airways open, move, move," while she triaged 20 shattered men on a wooden floor slick with plasma. They learned to sleep in 30-minute snatches between incoming rockets. They learned to smile at a 19-year-old who would never walk again, so he could find the courage to smile back at her. And when their tours of duty ended and the planes brought them home, many were met with silence or worse. There were no parades for the women in fatigues. No one asked what it felt like to lose a patient that you had rocked like a child before he died. Every Vietnam veteran alive today because a nurse refused to give up. Every limb saved, every infection stopped, every last breath eased. That was their victory, not measured in territory held, but in heartbeats that were preserved. So on this Veterans Day, we rectify an old oversight. To every Army combat nurse of Vietnam that's still with us, we are forever in your debt. And would James Maddox from the Pasadena Veterans Day Committee please join me to introduce our guest speaker. James?
Thank you. My name is James Maddox. I'm with the Pasadena, the Memorial Day Veterans Committee, and I'm also with Vietnam Veterans of America. Associate Justice Eileen Moore of the California Court of Appeal. Justice Moore's experiences in Vietnam continue to shape her advocacy. Reflecting on encountering an unhoused Vietnam veteran years after her service, she observed, "Perhaps these men had no positive memories of Vietnam except for the nurses who took care of them. I wondered if maybe they were still looking for us nurses to help them." The average age of nurses in Vietnam, 23.6 years. The average age of soldiers, 19.5. Iris West wrote an article entitled "The Women of the Army Nurse Corps During the Vietnam War." And in it she says, "The officers of the Army Nurse Corps cared for soldiers in their hour of greatest need. They nursed, they comforted, and they made sure no patient died alone. They selflessly endured countless hours of their patients' pain, sorrow, screams, mutilations, and at times death. And when it was over, the officers of the Army Nurse Corps quietly came home. All paid an emotional price for that year in Vietnam." Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Associate Justice Eileen Moore of the California Court of Appeal, a combat nurse, a life member of Vietnam Veterans of America, and someone that I am honored to call my friend. Thank you.
It's not fair. You two started me off by bringing me to the verge of tears. Thank you for asking me to be here today. It's heartwarming for me to see you gathered here together for the purpose of honoring those who have served our country. As you heard, in a former life, I was Lieutenant Eileen Moore, and I served as a combat nurse in the Army Nurse Corps in Vietnam. A best-selling book about an Army nurse who served in Vietnam came out last year, The Women by Kristen Hanna. By any chance, did any of you read it? I see some hands. Because the book, it was discussed, I think, by most book clubs around the country, because the book garnered so much interest, I decided to tell you today about a real nurse who served in Vietnam to give you an idea of the effect that war had on this soldier's life. It is my belief that the fictional character in the book is based on this real-life nurse. But first, I'll say a little about myself. When I came home, I walked right into the middle of the women's liberation movement. Even though I was a nobody, the daughter of a high school dropout, and a girl, I grabbed for that brass ring. And I was not the only Vietnam nurse who seized upon those opportunities offered by Women's Lib. About 75 of us gathered a few years ago in Washington, D.C. One nurse became a cardiologist in Arizona, one an oral surgeon in New Mexico, another became a scientist for the VA, there was an attorney from Arkansas, and an author from New York City. One from the Midwest became a psychologist, and one became a judge. That would be me. When I came back to this, well, that's because I live in the United States of America. When I came back to the States, I placed Vietnam in the far recesses of some compartment in my brain, and I never looked back. And then during the 1990s, as Jim alluded to in his introduction, it was before the governor elevated me to the Court of Appeal where I now sit. I was still on the Superior Court, and the local chapter of Vietnam Veterans of America asked me to speak at a special event at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. A Vietnam vet using a cane due to a war injury waited at the door to escort me inside. His name was Greg. I later learned that Greg had lived on the streets for 15 years, but somehow he pulled himself up and was in his last year of college. Off to the side of the auditorium sat 3 rows of disheveled-looking men in tattered jungle fatigues. I thought to myself, Vietnam vets, PTSD, self-medicated. After I spoke, those 3 rows of men completely surrounded me. Each had to touch me somewhere, my back, my shoulders, my arms. One took his pointer finger and went over and over the top of my hand. A few had tears in their eyes. I did not know why they were so emotional, but guessed that they had no good memories about Vietnam, except the nurses. And believe me, they could not have cared less that I was a judge. And those men at the Nixon Library brought back memories of soldiers opening their eyes after surgery to see an American girl standing over them. They had no idea where they were. Often a hand would drift up just to make sure we were really there. Wherever they were, they felt safe because we were there. A reminder of home, of America. And when we had to tell them that they lost an arm or a leg or an eye, often relief was their reaction. Charlie can't get me now. I'm going home. Since that evening at the Richard Nixon Library, I have been involved with veterans in one way or the other, particularly if the issues somehow have to do with our courts. About 5 years after the Nixon Library event, I spoke at the funeral of the man who escorted me inside that evening. Greg went on to get his bachelor's degree and had a job at a university, but his Vietnam demons got the best of him, and he drank himself to death. I think that sets the stage for the notion that each and every person who has served our country has his or her own individual story and brings back home memories and experiences. Most are able to transition back into the civilian world and go on with their lives without significant issues, but some have a very difficult time. In fact, many veterans who successfully transitioned back into the civilian world are here with us today, including me. Before I go further, just to drive home the notion that soldiers go on with their lives as civilians, but they don't forget. A group of us nurses from Vietnam still stay in contact via email. A few of the men that we met in Washington, D.C. when we gathered sometimes chime into our emails. One man, I think he's from Tennessee, survived the first major battle in the Vietnam War, the Battle of Ai Drang Valley. He wrote to us yesterday, 60 years after the battle. The subject line says, "To each of you." His email message reads, "Nurses, we can never repay you or thank you enough for being there with us guys in times of our greatest needs as young men. We will never forget your courage and calm when we were struggling with pain and confusion. On the battlefield, soldiers only cry for their mothers. And your comforting, as only a mother and angel could do, is something we will never forget. So from one veteran to another, welcome home and thank you. God bless. Bud." I am now going to tell you about that one soldier. Her name is Diane Carlson Evans. Diane came home from serving as a combat nurse in Vietnam and never shed a tear. Her default format was tell nobody, feel nothing, risk nothing. She went back for the dedication of the wall in 1982. As she read the names on the wall, she was thinking, "Who of you died on my watch? I'm sorry we couldn't save you." Then she heard someone say, "Ma'am, were you a nurse in Vietnam?" The man gulped and looked nervous before saying in a quivering voice, "I've waited 14 years to say this to a nurse, but I never came across one until now. I can't thank you nurses enough. I love you." He then buried her in a smoldering hug. That's when Diane began healing. During the dedication of the wall, Diane noticed that except for the 8 nurses who died in Vietnam, whose names are on the wall, there was no indication that women served in the war. There were women nurses, doctors, intelligence officers, burial officers, Red Cross volunteers, and many others who served. No one mentioned the 10,000 women who served in Vietnam, about 85% of whom were nurses. Nor was there any mention of the women who served in Vietnam during the speeches when the 3 soldiers statue, the statue of 3 men next to the wall, was dedicated. Diane pondered the notion of a monument for the women who served in Vietnam. She first contacted the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Foundation, the group responsible for the wall and the 3 soldiers statue. She told him about her idea and said, "We'd love your support." His response, "Well, that will never happen," and he hung up on her. I won't go into all the details, but I will try to give you an idea of what she did. She drafted her 4 children to help write letters and lick stamps. The American Nurses Association donated a small space in its Washington, D.C. headquarters, but she started receiving phone calls and voicemails. "Who do you think you are? Forget about adding a statue for women. One statue is enough." One time when she was having copies made, the clerk said to her, "Are you one of them feminazis?" When she went to the National Convention of Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, to ask for its support, its members made such remarks as, "You Vietnam veterans are all alike. You lost your war. You shamed America." 5 years into her endeavor, Diane and 2 other nurses were to appear before the Commission of Fine Arts, whose approval is required for anything that goes on the National Mall. Strategically timing his article, that very morning, the art critic for the Washington Post wrote a column criticizing the design of the statue, adding that the three-soldier statue of the men was enough. The New York Times and the Boston Globe wrote similar articles. Secretary of the Navy Jim Webb wrote to the commission that all these interest groups want statues, including the Canine Corps, as if women are an interest group or dogs. 4 out of 5 members of the Commission of Fine Arts voted against permitting a statue commemorating the women who served in Vietnam. Months after that, Diane received a telephone call. The woman said, "I'm calling on behalf of Morley Safer. 60 Minutes is exploring the possibility of doing a segment on nurses and their fight to get a memorial." That segment, The Forgotten Veterans, ran in 1989. Americans around the country wrote letters and sent donations to Diane. Families of nurses who committed suicide wrote to encourage her to continue. Diane's mailman wrote to say, or complained that he had to get a bigger bag. Thereafter, President George H.W. Bush signed legislation specifically authorizing the placement of a memorial to honor women of the armed forces of the United States who served in the Republic of Vietnam. Please note that no legislation was required for the wall or the three soldiers statue, but there was so much opposition to recognizing the women who served in Vietnam that legislation was necessary. On November 11, 1993, almost 11 years after she began, Diane Carlson Evans spoke at the dedication of the Vietnam Women's Memorial, a statue of 3 nurses that is near the wall and the 3 soldiers statue in the National Mall, not far from the Lincoln Memorial. Finally, the Vietnam Memorial was completed. The statue depicts 3 combat nurses tending a wounded soldier. Diane said in her dedication speech, "Welcome home, daughters of America. Welcome home, my sister veterans. Let no one ever forget you again and what you did for this nation." In Vietnam, Diane treated our soldiers and many Vietnamese civilians who had mortal injuries. Her experiences in Vietnam and her lifelong reaction to them teach us that when our government asks people to do extraordinary things, some are unable to put that part of their life behind them. From her story, I think we can assume that at least for some, healing from psychological war maladies has something to do with the public's recognition of the sacrifice our soldiers make. If you happen to go back to Washington, D.C., you will see that statue of the 3 nurses tending the wounded soldier. When you do, please understand that that monument of thanks from the public was the beginning of healing for many of the women who served in Vietnam. The reality that the public forgets our troops drives home the need for our lasting appreciation and recognition of a soldier's service. The fact that you are here today serves as an acknowledgement that you understand our veterans' need for support of the public when they come home. Whatever you are able to do for veterans would be wonderful. Thank you very much for asking me to be here.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Condor Squadron. I want to just tell you a little bit about them. They're an all-volunteer organization that was founded in 1962 at the Van Nuys Airport by members of the California Air National Guard. There are also World War II veterans among them. The planes that you're seeing being flown over City Hall this morning in a low-altitude, close formation flyover are restored World War II North American Aviation AT-6 SN planes, and they're painted in the world-famous 31st Fighter Group Squadron colors. Ladies and gentlemen, the rifle exhibition drill was just performed by the Blair High School Junior ROTC exhibition team. You know, as Justice Moore was speaking, I was looking out over the audience, and Justice Moore, there are some young ladies in the front row. That's the Rose Parade Queen in her court. And I don't think anybody listened more attentively to your remarks than those very fine young ladies. And I hope that after the program is over with, you'll have an opportunity to meet with them one-on-one. Before I bring back up to the podium the mayor of Pasadena, I want to tell you a little bit about him, and I want to share with you a personal experience that I had earlier this year, which gave me deep insight into the character of the mayor of Pasadena. I was at the Langham Hotel for the installation of the officers of the Pasadena Chamber of Commerce, and those of you who are familiar with the Langham, it's a very prestigious venue, and gathered in the main ballroom were the leaders of the business community of this city. And the mayor of Pasadena rose and approached the podium. And what he began to talk about was the workers in the hotel, the workers that were there, that prepared our meal and that were about to serve us our dinner. And, you know, a lot of people become successful in life and they forget their heritage. They forget where they came from. Our mayor has never forgotten. He is a true American success story. He never forgot his roots. He came from the humblest of beginnings. And that evening told me something about the character of our mayor. He was born in Zacatecas, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States with his parents as a young child. He was the oldest of 6 children. He grew up in Pasadena, and he's a proud product of the Pasadena Unified School District. You're a bulldog, right, Mayor? He's a bulldog. From the age of 9 until he was 17 years old, he started off at 9 years old, delivering the Pasadena Star-News newspaper every day before he went to school, and also on the weekends. Mayor Gordo played football, baseball, and soccer at Pasadena High School, and he received a number of athletic honors, including the All-Pacific League honors and the All-San Gabriel Valley Ambassadors Co-Athlete of the Year. When Victor enrolled at Pasadena City College, he became the first person in his family to attend college, continuing his education at Azusa Pacific University, studying business management and finance. Now, I first met him when he began his direct service for the city of Pasadena in 1997 when I was serving as mayor. Then Vice Mayor Bill Crowfoot had appointed him to be the field representative for District 5, City Council District 5. But it was while working as a field representative, a full-time job for the Vice Mayor of Pasadena, Victor Gordo undertook the grueling task of attending law school at night. He commuted 4 to 5 nights a week to the University of Laverne College of Law for classes. And he spent his weekends in the law library in order to compete with students who didn't have to work. He excelled at his studies and he graduated with honors 1 year ahead of his class. When Vice Mayor Gordo retired from city service, Victor Gordo was elected to represent Pasadena's District 5 on the Pasadena City Council in March of 2001. Victor Gordo was elected Pasadena's 3rd citywide elected mayor on November 3rd, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reintroduce and bring to the podium the mayor of Pasadena, the Honorable Victor Gordo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this short, but let me explain first and foremost what an honor and a privilege it is to be your mayor, to serve as mayor of this great city. And I'm here today, again, to honor all of you in the service and all of you who have family members and friends in the service that you support. And I'm here to do that on behalf of every resident of Pasadena. So I'd like to ask all of my colleagues on the City Council to join me to present the commendations and proclamations. And explain that the ribbon that we see before us today is a very important ribbon that has sat in our council chambers. There's our 223 men and women were deployed and is to be returned regrettably, because of the government shutdown. We will have to return it formally, hopefully when the shutdown is over, and we can present it directly to the men and women of the 223 here in Pasadena, Pasadena's own Marines, that we are very proud to have here in the city of Pasadena. Because of the shutdown, they are unable to participate directly and formally in this public-facing event. And that's unfortunate for all of us, and I use the term all of us, I mean for this country. But we here in Pasadena stand and recognize not only Pasadena's Marines, but all our service members, past, present, and future, who have and will serve this country with dignity, with respect, and with courage. And so we will hold that ribbon in its rightful place at City Hall until we are able to present it with the pride and gratitude deserving of our men and women in uniform here publicly in front of City Hall. And so together with my colleagues on the City Council, I would ask, I would read the following. First and foremost, should I read the order? The committee has asked me to read the following. Marine Corps Order number 47. And the following is to be read to the command on the 10th of November, 1921, and hereafter on the 10th of November of every year. Should the order not be received by the 10th of November, 1921, it will be read upon receipt. 1, on November 10th, 1775, a Corps of Marines was created by resolution of Continental Congress. Since that date, many thousands have borne the name Marine. In memory of them, it is fitting that we who are Marines should commemorate the birthday of our Corps by calling to mind the glories of its long and illustrious history. 2, the record of our Corps is one which will bear comparison with that of the most famous military organizations in the world's history. During 90 of the 146 years of existence, the Marine Corps has been in action against the nation's foes from the Battle of Trenton to the Argonne. Marines have won foremost honors in war, and it is the long eras of tranquility at home. Generation after generation of Marines have grown gray in war in both hemispheres and in every corner of the 7 seas, that our country and its citizens might enjoy peace and security. 3, in every battle and skirmish since the birth of our Corps, Marines have acquitted themselves with the greatest distinction, winning new honors on each occasion until the term Marine has come to signify all that is highest in military efficiency and soldierly virtue. 4, this high name of distinction and soldierly repute we who are Marines today have received from those who precede us in the Corps. With it, we have also received from them the eternal spirit which has animated our Corps from generation to generation and has been the distinguishing mark of the Marines in every age. So long as that spirit continues to flourish, Marines will be found equal to every emergency in the future as they have been in the past. And the men of our nation will regard us as worthy successors to the long line of illustrious men who have served as soldiers of the sea since the founding of the Corps. John Lueni, Major General Commandant, 775-705-21. And so it is in that spirit that I present, and I'll ask Mayor Paparian to stand with me and members of the City Council to receive this proclamation. Whereas over 600,000 Americans have sacrificed their lives while serving in the armed forces during armed conflicts over the past century, and the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedom and way of life enjoyed by Americans. And whereas California Military and Veteran Code 1365 designates the second full week in November as Veterans Appreciation Week, and it is important that future leaders of the nation understand the history of military action and the contributions and sacrifices of those who conduct such actions. And whereas this year, branches of our armed forces, Army, Navy, and Marine Corps will be celebrating their 250th birthday. And whereas more than 3,000 military veterans live in Pasadena, and there are more than 150 veteran-owned businesses in our city. And now, therefore, I, Victor M. Gordo, Mayor of the City of Pasadena, on behalf of the Pasadena City Council, do hereby proclaim this week of November 10th through the 16th, 2025 in Pasadena as Veterans Appreciation Week, and today as Veterans Day in the city of Pasadena and beyond. Your Honor, would you like to stand with us for a picture?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Pasadena Scottish Pipes and Drums.
left, 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 right, 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 left, 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 right, 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 left, left, other arm, both, right, face, breathe and arm, order, arm, retrieve the colors. Left, face, left, face. Right, face. Forward, one. Left, 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 right.
All right. So help me God is how we end our military pledge. So let us pray.
Let
Help us, O God, as we depart from this event honoring the veterans, the heroes, the champions of our constitutional rights, and to remember this day. Help us to remember this place where we have gathered together in liberty to remember those who pledged to protect and defend our liberties, so that we can remember our personal and individual pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. So help us God. Amen.
Let me reintroduce Shannon Gray from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Shannon is a soprano with a master's degree in vocal performance from the Westminster Choir College. She currently serves as a worship leader at Monrovia Community Church and as a soprano section leader with the Glendale Concert Singers. Shannon is also a proud member of the Daughters of American Revolution Martin Severance Chapter. Shannon.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. As the echoes of the Pasadena Scottish pipes and drums fade and the roar of the Condor Squadron's flyover lingers in our hearts, we stand together on the sacred 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, not just to remember the armistice that silenced the guns of World War I, but to honor the unbreakable spirit of every American who has worn the uniform since. Today, we mark not only the valor of those who served in the trenches of Belleau Wood or the sands of distant shores, but also the 250th anniversary of the United States Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, milestones etched into the very fabric of our freedom. To the Marines and sailors of the 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marine Regiment, our adopted sons and daughters, fresh from your overseas deployment, your safe return home has strengthened us all and reminds us of the meaning of selfless service. Justice Eileen Moore of the California Court of Appeal, your words today have illuminated the sacrifices that bind us together as a community and as a nation. And to every veteran here, the city of Pasadena salutes you. You have inspired our youth as we have witnessed in their participation in this ceremony by the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps and the Blair High School Army Junior ROTC. And yet, as President Lincoln urged over 160 years ago, quote, "Let us strive on to finish the work which shall have bound up the nation's wound, to care for him who shall have borne the battle," unquote. Our debt is not paid in applause alone, but in action, in jobs that honor your skills, homes that shelter your families, health care that mends your wounds, and a society that listens to your stories. Here in the city of Pasadena, with the support of partners like the American Legion, Vietnam Veterans of America, and the Daughters of the American Revolution, we commit to the sacred obligation every day. And as we conclude this gathering, let us commit to teach our children the meaning of duty, honor, country, and the stories of the heroes of Pasadena like Raymond G. Harvey. God bless our veterans, their families, and the United States of America. May peace prevail and may freedom endure. Now, while this concludes the formal program, there's a lot of hot dogs back there that the Pasadena firefighters have been grilling. So stick around, folks, and thank you very much for being part of this ceremony today.